I want you to imagine a raging wildfire just tearing across this vast, endless plain. The heat is incredibly intense, the flames are towering, and the fire is just absolutely devastating everything in its path.
Right, complete destruction.
Exactly. I mean, all the lush green grass, the brush, everything above ground is instantly turned to ash. And from a distance, it looks like this total, irreversible destruction.
Yeah, like nothing could ever grow there again.
But then, a few months later, the spring breeze rolls in. And almost like magic, the grass returns. It just pushes right up through that charred earth, vibrant and green, acting as if that apocalyptic fire never even happened.
It's incredible, really.
It is. And, how does it manage to do that? The secret isn't in the blades of grass themselves. It is entirely about what lies hidden far beneath the surface.
Because what happens above the ground, what is visible to the eye, is ultimately dictated by the invisible systems that anchor it below.
Right.
The survival of that grass was guaranteed long before the first spark of the fire, purely because of the depth of its root system.
And that exact image is our entry point into the material we are exploring in today's deep dive. We're looking at a pretty fascinating text. It's an excerpt from something called Chapter of Celestial Cultivation, Article 9, authored by Swiffing.
Yeah, the title of this specific article is Deep Roots and a Firm Foundation for Longevity and Enduring Vision.
And we have a rather profound mission today. We are going to map out this text's very specific, highly structured blueprint for spiritual longevity, for ultimate resilience, and, well, for somehow transcending the exhausting daily grind of human existence.
Which is a tall order. And Swiffing makes some incredibly bold, universe-spanning, religious and philosophical claims in this text.
Very bold.
Right. And I should say, our job today isn't to, convert you to these viewpoints, nor is it to debunk his theology.
Exactly. We are entirely neutral here.
Yeah, we're simply putting on our structural engineering hats to kind of reverse engineer this philosophical framework. We want to understand its internal logic, explore the concepts he presents, and see exactly how he constructs this sweeping worldview.
We are just tour guides through this conceptual landscape. And I think the best place to start is exactly where the text starts, which is grounded firmly in the physical world.
Right, the tangible stuff.
Yeah, because before the author makes his grand spiritual promises, he forces us to look at biological realities to prove his point. He actually opens by quoting the ancient philosopher Laozi, referencing the concept of a firm foundation as the ultimate way to enduring vision.
What's fascinating here is how the author uses observable physical reality to demonstrate a metaphysical law.
Right.
He starts with that botanical metaphor of the prairie grass surviving the fire, but then he scales it up. He takes us out of the plains and up into the towering cliffs and mountain ranges, pointing our attention to the pines and cypresses.
Evergreen trees.
Exactly. These trees are evergreen, they don't yield to the harshest winters, and they completely defy the bitter, unrelenting northwest winds that strip other trees bare. And the text asks a simple question: why? The answer is that their roots run deep into the rock. True resilience for a tree or a person isn't about having the thickest bark or the most vibrant leaves.
It's all about the roots.
It relies entirely on the invisible anchors beneath the surface, gripping the stone when the storms hit.
And he scales it up even further from there, moving from botany directly into human history.
Yeah, he does.
He points to Chinese civilization, noting that it has endured without interruption for 5,000 years. I mean, it has survived wars, famines, and massive dynastic shifts, continuously producing great talents generation after generation.
Right, an incredible timeline.
And he applies the exact same logic here. The civilization survived because its cultural roots were driven incredibly deep into the soil of human experience. But, the contrast he draws is what really grabs you. He sets these deep-rooted examples against what he identifies as the shallow.
Yeah, the text presents a really stark dichotomy between those that endure and those that simply react.
He gives two brilliant images for this shallowness. First, the reeds growing on top of a wall.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that placement. They are elevated, they look prominent, but they are completely rootless. They are top-heavy, and so they sway wildly with every single gust of wind.
So fragile.
Right. And the second image is the bamboo shoots growing in the mountains. He describes them as sharp-tipped, thick-skinned, yet completely hollow within.
All inside, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because when I read that description, sharp-tipped, thick-skinned, but entirely hollow inside, My mind immediately went to modern internet
Oh,
culture.
that's a great connection.
Right. I mean, think about social media discourse. You have so many people out there with incredibly sharp, loud opinions. They are incredibly thick-skinned and ready to fight in the comment sections for hours.
Yeah, just battling away online.
Exactly. But they possess absolutely no foundational knowledge on the topic they are screaming about. They are completely hollow inside. And because they lack that deep, unseen foundation, they act exactly like those reeds on the wall, just swaying frantically with whatever outrage trend is currently blowing through the timeline.
That maps perfectly onto the text's underlying premise, really. A rigid exterior without internal substance shatters under pressure.
Mhm.
A reed on a wall might have the illusion of height and importance, but its position is entirely precarious. The slightest environmental disruption knocks it flat.
Right. One bad day and it's gone.
Exactly. And the hollow bamboo might look formidable and tough on the outside, but it has no internal nutrient system to sustain it through a drought. The author is establishing a fundamental law of his universe right here at the beginning. Anything that lacks a deep, unseen foundation, whether it's a plant, a 5,000-year-old civilization, or a human mind, is ultimately doomed to be blown away by the harsh winds of reality.
Well, if deep roots are the only mechanism to survive the fire and the wind, it begs the question, what exactly are these roots made of?
Right.
Because the text doesn't leave this as an abstract metaphor. It provides highly specific definitions. It states, the way of the greatest creator is the root.
Yes.
And it follows that by saying, the teachings of gods and Buddhas are the foundation. And it explicitly commands followers to heed the teachings of Jesus and Shakyamuni, who is the Buddha.
And the goals attached to establishing this specific foundation are completely otherworldly. The text claims that by walking this path and building these roots, you awaken your innate spiritual consciousness.
Which sounds amazing.
Right. But it goes further, using some very heavy philosophical terminology. It claims you can transcend the three realms and break free from the five elements.
Okay, those are massive concepts. What does it actually mean to transcend the three realms and break free from the five elements, at least in the context of this text?
Well, if we look at the cosmological traditions the author is drawing from, the three realms typically refer to the realms of desire, form, and formlessness.
Okay.
Essentially, it encompasses the entirety of the psychological and physical traps that keep humans suffering. Our endless cravings, our attachment to physical bodies, and even our mental abstractions.
So transcending them means what exactly?
To transcend them means to step outside the cycle of suffering entirely. And then you have the five elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. These represent the fundamental building blocks of the physical deterministic universe.
Got it.
So breaking free from them means you are no longer bound by the physical laws of nature, decay, and death. You comprehend the formless source, and you merge your finite biological life into the infinite dimensions of existence.
That is heavy. And Choi Feng places himself at the very center of this process. He states that he emerged from the primordial Hundun, traversed the realms of yin and yang, and birthed what he calls Lifechanyuan through his deep spiritual roots.
Yes, he does.
Now, wait, Hundun isn't just a messy room or standard chaos, right? It's a very specific mythological concept.
It is, yeah. In Chinese mythology, Hundun is the primordial state of the universe before things were differentiated.
Oh, like before the Big Bang kind of thing.
Kinda, yeah. It's the void before light and dark, before yin and yang split apart. It is pure, undifferentiated potential.
Wow.
By claiming he emerged from Hundun, Shofeng positions himself as a direct conduit to the absolute, uncorrupted origin of reality. He isn't presenting himself as a philosopher sharing good advice. He is claiming to have navigated the primordial forces of the universe to bring this precise spiritual framework, Lifechanyuan, into existence for humanity.
Okay, but I have to admit, reading through this, I hit a massive theological speed bump.
Oh, what was that?
Well, he's instructing the reader to simultaneously follow the path of the greatest creator, heed the teachings of Jesus, and follow the Buddha. If you look at those traditions, they have fundamentally different, often conflicting views on the nature of God, the existence of the soul, the mechanics of the afterlife. I mean, it feels a bit like trying to run three completely different operating systems on your computer at the exact same time.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Doesn't merging these just lead to a system crash of contradictions?
That tension is absolutely present, but what's fascinating here is that the text actively anticipates it. It's less about trying to run 3 different operating systems and more about looking at the machine code that powers all of them.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, the author isn't trying to merge the specific dogma of these religions. In fact, he explicitly criticizes devout followers trapped in dogma who, in his words, toil in vain on the path.
Oh, wow.
So this philosophy is an attempt at a grand spiritual synthesis. He views Jesus, the Buddha, and the greatest creator not as competing exclusive systems, but as different cultural expressions of the exact same underlying binary language.
Okay, so he's looking for the universal truth in all of them.
Exactly. The goal is to reach that formless source. He argues that by stripping away the sectarian borders, the cultural baggage, and the rigid rituals that usually divide these figures, you find the actual structural roots of reality.
So, getting caught up in the specific, contradictory rules of individual religions is actually a symptom of having a shallow foundation.
Spot on.
True, deep roots bypass the human-made structures entirely and tap directly into the universal aquifer that feeds all of them.
Exactly. To argue over whose religious structure is better is to act like the hollow bamboo. The author's point is that the formless origin of life doesn't care about the labels we put on it.
Okay, so if this unified ultimate path is mapped out so clearly and the stakes are quite literally transcending physical death and entering infinite dimensions, why is anyone doing anything else?
Right, why aren't we all doing this?
Exactly. According to the text, it's because humanity is tragically, almost comically distracted by the trivial.
The author's critique of the mundane secular world is vivid and unsparing. He describes worldly people as rushing frantically about, entirely blind to the divine.
He absolutely goes after everyone. He says mundane folk are caught in endless folly and actively mock those who seek the truth.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't. He even targets the intellectuals, the esteemed scholars, saying they are just lost in superficial pursuits, confusing trivial details for profound wisdom, essentially rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
To illustrate this, he utilizes some deeply humbling animal analogies. He observes the frantic scrambling of the masses and compares them to flies drawn to blood or ants fighting a war over crumbs.
Jeez.
It's entirely a matter of scale and perspective. From the vantage point of infinite dimensions in the primordial Hunden, our grandest human struggles, our corporate ladders, and our political wars look exactly like insects battling over pieces of garbage on the sidewalk.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The phrase that really stuck with me is when the text says people are waging massive battles atop a snail's horn and vying for dominance in the fleeting spark of time.
Atop a snail's horn. It's such a great image.
Just visualize that for a second.
Yeah.
Waging a war atop a snail's horn?
Mm.
Think about the most heated, intense argument you've ever been in. Maybe it's a crowded grocery store parking lot.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. Someone aggressively cuts you off and steals the space you had your blinker on for. Your blood boils. The tunnel vision sets in. You roll down the window. You're yelling. They're yelling back.
The adrenaline is pumping.
Exactly. In that specific moment, that conflict feels like the absolute center of the universe. It consumes your entire physiological reality.
Yeah, completely.
But according to this text, in the grand scheme of boundless space and infinite time, you and that other driver are literally just two microscopic organisms waging a furious life or death battle on the tip of a snail's horn. The sheer absurdity of it is staggering.
It is staggering, but the text frames it as a profound tragedy. The text laments this state of affairs, exclaiming, "Alas, a beautiful life dissolves into illusion. Tragic. Precious time is squandered in delusion." The tragedy isn't simply that we are fighting on a snail's horn. The true tragedy is that we lack the awareness to know we are on a snail's horn. Because the average person lacks deep roots, they cannot zoom out.
They're just trapped in the moment.
Yes, they are entirely consumed by the physiological spike of the immediate moment, the fleeting spark. And as a result, they squander their limited time in the physical world, missing out on the opportunity to connect with the infinite.
So awareness isn't enough. Just knowing we are on the snail's horn doesn't get us off of it. How does this text actually instruct a person to step away from the crumbs and the flies?
That's the core question.
That brings us to the practical solutions and the ultimate philosophical takeaway for achieving this longevity. And it all centers around a concept the author calls the origin.
Right. The text provides a clear, highly structured set of instructions based on this concept. It states, "Those who do not lose their origin endure. Those who die yet do not perish attain longevity."
So what is this origin exactly?
The origin is defined very specifically as home. It is the ultimate source of life, described as the innate Buddha nature. The underlying mechanism here is memory and preservation.
Memory, how so?
Well, the argument is that if you can preserve this true innate nature, if you can essentially remember where you came from before the distractions and the dopamine loops of the secular world took over your brain, you maintain a tether to the infinite.
Wow, okay.
And by maintaining that tether, the biological death of the physical body does not equate to the death of the consciousness.
So what does this all mean in practice? Because Sufeng doesn't just leave it at vague poetry. He outlines very specific, regimented practices within the Lifechanyuan framework to actively cultivate these roots.
Yes, very specific.
He instructs followers to recite 4 daily scriptures, morning, noon, evening, and night. They are told to contemplate what he calls the 8 heart practices of Lifechanyuan, uncover the 8 great secrets, and continuously contribute to the mission.
The mechanism behind these practices is crucial. It isn't just about reading words on a page. It is about intentional, repeated cognitive restructuring.
Like rewiring the brain.
Exactly. Think about how the brain operates when it is constantly bombarded by modern stimuli. It becomes fragmented and reactive. By enforcing a regimen of reciting scriptures 4 times a day and contemplating specific heart practices, the framework forces the practitioner to repeatedly break the cycle of trivial distraction.
That makes total sense.
Contemplating a deep spiritual truth requires you to hold a single profound concept in your mind. This focused stillness acts like a root actively pushing through compacted soil. It gradually rewires the mind away from the flies-to-blood reactivity and anchors it in the broader perspective of the origin.
He knows people are going to roll their eyes at this.
Oh, of course.
He anticipates the skeptics who will call this path to immortality a deception. But his response to those critics is brilliantly dismissive. He doesn't engage with their arguments, he just critiques their state of being.
Yeah, he calls them drifting clouds.
Exactly. Drifting clouds ever-changing, lacking any real understanding of life, possessing an incredibly shallow foundation. He's basically saying, how could someone who is violently blown around by every passing breeze possibly grasp the aerodynamics of the universe?
He dismisses them because they lack the foundational anchor required to even evaluate the claim. And this leads to what are arguably the most powerful, challenging dichotomies in the entire text.
What are they?
The author lays it out plainly. Stillness breeds wisdom, restlessness breeds confusion. Hardship leads to inner peace. Indulgence fosters recklessness.
Man, when he says hardship leads to inner peace, indulgence fosters recklessness, it feels like a direct, precision-targeted attack on our modern culture.
Oh, completely.
Everything we are sold today tells us the exact opposite. We are told that indulgence upgrading to the luxury car, getting the softer mattress, having every meal delivered seamlessly to our door so we avoid the hardship of the kitchen, we're told that is the ultimate path to peace and happiness.
The dream of a frictionless life.
Right. But this text argues that this exact frictionless indulgence is actually making us reckless. It's making us soft and reactive, just like the hollow mountain bamboo.
This raises an important question, really. It completely inverts the modern value system. Our world is heavily engineered for maximum frictionless comfort and maximum continuous distraction.
Yeah, we're constantly stimulated.
We're conditioned to be relentlessly restless, always seeking the next notification, the next dopamine hit, the next purchase. But the text argues that true celestial transformation, actual freedom from suffering, requires humble, deliberate stillness. When we are constantly consuming and constantly moving, we are living a shallow, unrooted existence. The hardship the text elevates isn't necessarily physical torture. It is the profound psychological hardship of sitting completely alone in a quiet room with your own thoughts without immediately reaching for a screen to numb the silence.
Which is terrifying for most people.
Exactly. That deliberate stillness is incredibly difficult. It is a hardship. But according to this framework, that friction is the only way to force your roots deeper into the bedrock of reality.
Wow. We've covered incredible ground today. We started by looking at the deep roots of that prairie grass quietly surviving an apocalyptic wildfire.
Right.
We explored a massive, ambitious synthesis of world religions that strips away all human dogma to find the raw machine code of the universe. We recognized the absolute absurdity of fighting our daily, blood-boiling battles on a microscopic snail's horn.
Such a great analogy.
And finally, we arrived at this highly challenging idea that finding our origin, our true home, requires us to actively reject restless indulgence and embrace the profound hardship of stillness.
It is a philosophy that demands a total, radical shift in how you allocate your attention. It asks you to stop obsessing over the visible, flashy branches of your life and start rigorously tending to the invisible anchors beneath the surface.
It really does.
And as we wrap up, consider scaling this concept up from the individual to the collective. We've talked about what happens to a person who lacks deep roots, but what happens to a culture
That's a scary thought.
in an era practically engineered by algorithms and commerce to keep us perpetually restless, scrolling and fighting over crumbs? Imagine if an entire society loses its connection to the origin.
Just a whole society of reeds on a wall.
Exactly. What happens when the whole culture becomes nothing but a field of hollow bamboo? The slightest historical gust could blow it all away. So the challenge the text leaves you with isn't just about personal peace, it's about structural integrity. If you were to actively uproot one shallow root of indulgence in your life today and replace just 5 minutes of frantic restlessness with pure, unadulterated stillness, how might that unseen anchor change the way you weather the next inevitable storm?